Hey, what's up guys? My name is Josh, and a patron and a friend of mine asked basically me to expand on something I said in one of my reviews, talking about a term called timbre. It's spelled T-I-M-B-R-E, even though it's pronounced timbre, which is kind of weird. I've heard that Europeans can pronounce it both ways, both timbre and timbre. I don't know. That's not important. What is important is I actually want to expand on that a little bit and talk about it. Now, I want to talk about this in three ways, and basically I'm going to cover the disclaimer to this video. Then I want to cover kind of what it is, and then third and most important, why it matters. Okay, so number one, the truth of this video is that I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about here. I am not a sound engineer. I don't produce or make my own music. I am simply talking as a guy who has done a little bit of research into this subject. I am not an expert by any means. I'm going to link a video down below to a channel that's unaffiliated with me. I don't have any affiliation with them whatsoever. And it's a video that goes much more in depth into harmonics, fundamental frequencies, overtones, all that sort of information. And they give a much more in-depth explanation. If you want to know more about this from a technical standpoint and why it is what it is, then go watch that video. If you just want to learn why it matters, that's kind of why I'm making this video. Now, part number two, what is it? So timbre is basically also known as tone color, and it's basically what distinguishes instruments that are playing at the same pitch and loudness. So you have a violin and a cello that may be playing the same notes, but they're gonna sound obviously very, very different. Now, if you wanna know more about that, like I said, just go watch the video. It's gonna be a lot easier than watching my dumbass explain it, trust me. Now, I wanna talk about why this matters in terms of headphones and speakers. So why does this matter? Well, a headphone that has better timbre capability and a headphone that has a better ability to distinguish specific instruments usually has better musicality to it, which is kind of a really loose term that I really hesitate towards kind of using, but it is kind of true. If you have more accurate timbre, if you have greater separation between instruments in terms of their tones and how they sound, then you are going to have better musicality. Now, there can be kind of oversaturation of a certain tone and undersaturation, and it cannot quite sound natural, and there's kind of a fine point where it's not too much, not too little, it's right in the sweet spot. And that's for each and every instrument, and each and every instrument is going to change headphone to headphone. And to be real honest here, I don't know exactly what would cause a headphone to have good timbre and bad timbre. I do know that an example that I like to use is the difference between SHP 9500s and HC 600s. They have relatively similar delivery except for the upper end of treble, but in terms of the mid-range, they have very similar approaches to how they deliver sound, yet they do sound pretty different. And I think a large portion of that comes down to the fact that I personally believe that 600s have a much better kind of timbre factor to them. They have much better tone color with instruments, and the instruments seem to have better separation between them. And that's really, to me, what separates those two majorly in terms of sound quality. I think that the 600 sounds a lot more musical, even though I really hate that term because it's really kind of open-ended and doesn't really explain anything. And honestly, if I were to take a guess as to what would cause a headphone to have good timbre or bad timbre, I think it's a number of factors. I think that imaging and soundstage don't necessarily have a huge part to play in terms of the timbre or any part at all really, but they can add to an instrumental separation factor, which I think is extremely important. I think timbre comes down to the specific frequencies that a specific headphone plays well and doesn't play well. I think that certain frequencies that it does play well can add to the timbre, and another headphone that may not play those specific frequencies can have better timbre in a different category, maybe for different instruments. But I do think that a huge part of this is going to be the capability of the speed of the driver. This goes for dynamic, planar, electrostatic, any type of driver really. And I think just the speed and capability of reproduction of the sounds. So generally when I hear a particularly fast headphone, it also tends to have really good timbre, but not always, not every single time will it just really have this really good musicality factor to it. A great example of a fast headphone that does have good timbre is the DT 1990s. And those things are insane not only as a well-rounded headphone in general, but the tone color of it is immaculate. It's one of the best. Another headphone with great tone color is like the Odyssey LCDXs. I'm not sure what properties cause this to act that way or not act that way on a different set of headphones. This is just kind of my opinion and what I find. Now, it's important to note that in my listening, when I'm talking about this, the only thing that I have as an establishing baseline is things that I have heard live and in person, and a combination of all the other headphones that I've tried. So something that plays a specific instrument drastically different than everything else, I kind of have to assess why it plays it drastically different than everything else and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So the same guitar from the same song can sound one way on one headphone and significantly different, not only in terms of delivery, but the actual saturation of the sound. All right, I think I've talked about that enough. So go watch that video if you want more of an in-depth explanation and not just my dumb head talking. And subscribe if you're new to the channel so you can hear more of my dumb head talking, and support on Patreon if you really appreciate what I do. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Do new videos every single day. Always forget to say that for some reason. I always have to do like 2 or 3 takes for that. All right, I'm done. Okay, bye.